News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back to the program. And I'm pleased to be joined in studio by Governor Matt Mead. Good morning, Governor.
Don, and it's great to be with you. I appreciate the job you're doing. It's nice to be in studio with you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here, and I know we've talked on the phone a few times, but we haven't had a chance to meet in person. I will say it's the first time I've met a governor in person.
Oh well, I'm glad to be the first. So I hope you're not.
Well, I got to talk to Governor Markell in Delaware a few times on the phone, but never in person. So it's a pleasure having you here. And
we're glad you chose Wyoming, and an official welcome. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to mention first. We'll get to the Veterans Breakfast and maybe some of the things that you're up to here in Gillette. But I've been following the landslide over in Jackson, and you were over there yesterday. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you were able to see?
Yeah, it's first of all, I want everybody to know Teton County and Jackson is open for business. It's in an isolated area, but it is in an area that has affected businesses and affected homes. What it is very slow moving, and the good news is it's slowing down, or the last monitors suggest that it's slowing down. I think yesterday they were thinking maybe it moved about a quarter inch. But it started on April 4th, and then, for example, you have a house that the level in their backyard dropped, 12, 15 feet, and so the whole section of the house is gone.
Ooh.
It's slow moving, and the toe of the slide is going right down towards the main artery into Jackson, but they've got it stopped for now, and so that's the good news. But it's for those families and those businesses, obviously very tough. The county and the town are working hard on how to figure out how to remediate it, and they have an expert who is a landslide expert up there, and they're drilling some holes right now, and they're finishing the fourth one up to see what the best way to remediate it. So it's certainly a challenge. They're meeting it head on, and I think the important message from that community is they want everybody to know, hey, we're still open. It's things are going on.
Well, and it's such a beautiful part of the country too. So it's good to know that it's not impacting their business that much. And of course, for the families that are being impacted by it, it really is. It's got to be tough. Is there anything the state's going to be able to do to help out?
We have about 6 or 7 different opportunities to work with the towns and counties, including a request for FEMA to do a preliminary evaluation on the costs and see if we can get a declaration, a federal declaration. But on top of that, Wyoming Homeland Security has some funds. There's a governor's fund. There's Wyoming Business Council. So Business Council have been out there already, Workforce Services, Homeland Security, the state geologist, obviously the Department of Transportation. And so we're looking for the opportunity to do that. Part of it is timing, because if you go out there on day one and you say, what are the costs? They don't meet the minimum threshold for some of those programs to be implemented. But I think the town estimates already they've spent about $600,000. And, by the time the complete cleanup is done and the remediation and stabilization is done, it could be many millions of dollars. So it's a serious issue for that town.
Well, and I guess it's not even really completely over yet either. So it's one of those things you just have to ride it out until they manage to get the thing stopped, and then they can kind of reassess.
Yeah, that's in addition to the immediate sort of damage, it's that sort of continual movement that is, obviously a cause for concern, and they're working hard to address.
Well, and that's we'll keep an eye on it, and I'm sure you'll probably keep an eye on it down in Cheyenne as well, and try to do what you can. But closer to home, of course, today you're here. You have a busy day lined up. I'm glad you're able to make a few minutes for us. Of course, at 8:00 you were over at the Senior Center for the Veterans Breakfast. Could you just give us a little bit of an idea about some of the things that you were able to talk about over there?
Yeah, well, I pointed out it was great. First of all, what a beautiful Senior Center. Absolutely spectacular. And what a great program to have the last Tuesday of every month to have the Veterans Breakfast there. And I pointed out, I was glad to have that opportunity because Campbell County, as you know, and Gillette is where I got my start out of school. And this is where, when I first announced I was going to run for governor, this is where I did it. And so to be back with those people and to see a lot of people that I have known was wonderful. But the veterans, part of the message was, listen, we can never miss an opportunity to say thank you for your service. And by the service you do and how well the state does in terms of making sure you have your needs met is important for you as individuals, but it's also important for the men and women currently considering whether you sign up for the active duty or the Guard. We need to make sure our veterans are always at the top priority in terms of the state and what we do. And I would commend the legislature, not only the last 3 years, but historically. They've done a very good job on veterans issues. And in the last 3 years, we've made some great changes to help support our veterans. But it's always an honor, to meet a World War II vet, Korean vet, Vietnam vet, Gulf War vets, the current members of the military. It's one of the great privileges I have in my role as governor.
Well, and it really is one of the really, really cool things about Wyoming and Gillette in particular. It just seems like the vets are really treated with the respect that they deserve. And I hadn't even really considered the angle of people maybe considering joining. They see that they're respected here in Wyoming, and they might make that decision to serve their country then.
Yeah, and the vets get that. I mean, they understand when you raise your right hand and say, you know what, I want to serve. I believe in our country. I believe in our freedoms. That goes with that is there's a corresponding obligation for each citizen to appreciate their service. And if we come to a day where we fail to do that, we're not going to have very good luck of men and women of the new generations saying, I want to do that, because it is a sacrifice, and not only a sacrifice for the individual serving, it's a sacrifice on the family. And, we have to remember the men and women, whether they're serving here or overseas, there's occasions where they certainly are putting themselves in harm's way, whether it's floods or fires in the state or whether, it's a live firefight overseas. We need to make sure our vets are respected for their own service and also for the future generations.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody listening would agree with that. And of course, the other event you have coming up today here in Gillette is the chamber luncheon. So why don't we talk a little bit about what we're going to be hearing over there?
Yeah. Well, it's I've been to that chamber luncheon several times, and again, that's not by accident. We because, as I said, I got my start here in Campbell County. I reinstated the capital for the day, and it was here in Campbell County, our first capital of the day, or at least at mine as governor. And that chamber luncheon is always so well attended. And by the way, last week in Buffalo, they had a statewide chamber award for chambers across the state, and your Gillette Chamber of Commerce received an award there. So a very good chamber here. They've asked me to sort of give where we are in the state, the condition of the state, and then talk about oil and gas specifically and some of the challenges. And to be sure, as you know, there is challenges.
Oh, yeah.
There's just the permitting delay on the federal government side. When you're going into 5, 6, 7 years for permitting, I mean, that is a huge cost in terms of what that company has to go through. But more importantly, it's a huge cost to the state because that is lost opportunity for revenue during that whole period of time. Those are challenges, and we see challenges not only in Wyoming but across the state. Particularly people who don't have a complete understanding of hydraulic fracturing, fracking as it's called. People like natural gas, for example, but they don't like fracking. When the fact is, over 90% of the wells in the country are fracked now.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that. I've a friend that from Texas of all places that thought that fracking causes earthquakes, and there was a little tremor in Texas somewhere, and it must have been from the fracking. And I had to explain, no, that's not really. I mean, this is something that's been going on for 60, 70 years. I mean, of course, they come up with new methods and new technologies, but it's not a new idea.
No, it's not a new idea at all. And the technology has improved, and the horizontal drilling capabilities have improved. And this is, we need to, all of us, to make sure we educate ourselves and help inform others on this issue, because getting the energy puzzle right is critical for Wyoming, critical for our country, frankly, because we know there's, 1 billion plus people who are living worldwide in energy poverty. We know there's a burgeoning middle class globally. So the energy demands as they are today are going to pale in comparison to the energy demands in the future. And what a great opportunity Wyoming with its resources to develop them responsibly in a way that helps our citizens in Wyoming, but helps the country as well. It's a great provider of jobs. And we know anytime you look at state revenue, local revenue, we have to say thanks to the folks in oil and gas, coal. They make it happen. They make us a state where we are proudly just, again, recognized as the state with the lowest taxes. Our unemployment is at 4%. We're rated always in the top 5 as a good place to do business. We've been rated number 1 or 2 as the best run state in the country for the last 3 years running. And that is in a number of reasons, but it is because the mineral industry provides us so many great opportunities to address needs from veterans, to save money, or we're hundreds of millions of dollars in savings in the last several years. And so it's minerals, it's tourism, it's ag, it's great small businesses in manufacturing. You got some great manufacturing people here in Gillette. All that adds to that, but it's all interconnected, and the mineral industry certainly is a huge player in that.
Well, and if specifically here in Campbell County and Gillette, everything pretty much is tied to the coal industry, and a little bit more. We're seeing a little bit more oil development as well. I still have a kind of a gut feeling that's going to be the next boom around here, but everything is tied to it. I mean, even I like to say, even as a radio station, the businesses that buy ads from us, their customers are people that work in those oil fields or in the coal mine.
Huge collateral benefits.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when you deal with the federal government, I mean, how do you get them to speed up those permitting processes? I guess that's the $1 million question, isn't it? There's sort of a twofold effort. One is every day we fight off what the federal government's trying to do to our state in any number of ways, and then the second half of that is we try to, by any way possible, to make sure that they're on board with what we're trying to do here. I've met with this Secretary of Interior. I met with the previous Secretary of Interior on multiple occasions, trying to explain why it is good for our country to have reasonable rules and regulations, and with mixed results. But we have to recognize when the economy is down, when we've been in this great recession, one of the best ways to help everybody is affordable energy. It not only helps the people in the business, as you said, it helps collateral in a huge way. It helps us be competitive in manufacturing. And, we see it in Wyoming. I mean, we're a great example. Our economy is so strong, and it's because we have a sound energy policy in Wyoming that allows this development, allows us to have, the low cost of electricity. It allows us to say with pride, 40% of electricity in this country is produced by coal, and Wyoming's a huge player in that. So it is not a selfish interest. It's an interest for the whole country that we be able to develop these resources. Well, not only that, for the entire world, if you think about it, but because we can export some of that coal to other countries. And so why don't we talk a little bit about some of the efforts to do that as well? I mean, you've visited China and Taiwan, and I mean, how are the talks to maybe sell a little bit more of our coal overseas going?
Listen, I visited Taiwan last year, and I say this jokingly, but there's some truth in it as well. Had I had a lump of coal in my coat pocket, I would have been able to sell it to Taiwan. People know Taiwan's a great trading partner with the United States. What they may not know is that their energy portfolio, they import about almost 100% of their energy. They have in their portfolio, they have some nuclear, but what they really want to grow in a big way is coal. And so we have to make sure these ports on the western U.S. understand that it's disingenuous for them when we produce 40% of our electricity by coal to say, hey, we don't want a good trading partner like Taiwan to have coal. And the fact is you can shut all the coal down in Wyoming, and still coal is going to be the fastest growing global producer of electricity. So why not Wyoming coal, low sulfur, produced in an environmentally sound way, produced in a worker safe way, and versus Indonesia coal or versus Australia coal, we can do it better. We have better product, and it's better for the environment. And so that is the message. And so when I visit Taiwan or South Korea, we can do some pushing from our end, but we need a pull from those countries as well. And then we've got a lot of work to do with the states, U.S. states that have the ports, to make sure they understand, you can't shut this down. It's an interference with interstate commerce. No more than I could say in Wyoming, we're not accepting apples.
Right. Well, and it just seems right now, I mean, as we are right now, a lot of that's going out through Vancouver, I'd imagine. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense just letting all of that money and all of those jobs go to British Columbia when it could go to Washington or Oregon.
Well, that's why you see labor unions are so supportive of this. They recognize what it means to the economy and for jobs. And they also recognize that, Wyoming coal is a good coal, and they want to be in the game. In Vancouver, I visited Vancouver, and they had a port there they were working on to ship, I think, about 4 million tons of coal. We visited the Gladstone port, which exports a lot of Canadian coal, including met coal. But we need to be thinking of big numbers, 70, 80 million tons of coal exporting. And that's important for the industry here in order for them to continue to be profitable. And if they're not profitable, they're not going to stay in the game. And so that is a critical component we hope to have success on. Well,
and since we're on the topic of coal, are there any developments as far as regional haze rerequirements that the EPA is trying to shove down our throats?
Yeah,
is there any news on that?
I think you put it right. It's trying to shove down our throats. We currently have, and it's not that I just always want to be in court. It's just that it's important to defend what's our state's rights and what's important to our citizens. I think we have 7 different lawsuits against the EPA now. And regional haze is going to be just the same sort of thing. Regional haze, as you know, is not a health standard or a human safety standard. It's what you can visibly see in the air. And the EPA has said, listen, we want this target in a certain amount of time. The state came up with a plan how to meet that target. It was rejected mostly by the federal government. And the federal government's plan costs many hundreds of millions of dollars more. And it doesn't get us to any different place in the state plan. And I hear people say, well, the companies absorb it. But that's not what happens. What happens is those costs are passed on to mom, dad, grandparents, or kids, not just in their heating or cooling bill, but in the cost of all our products, because it's tied to food costs, transportation costs. So it is a big deal, and I hope citizens everywhere recognize to have an unrealistic standard that costs hundreds of millions of dollars is going to be transferred onto us as individuals, to our businesses, to our manufacturing, will be a very bad deal. And so we're fighting with everything we can on that and the other many lawsuits we have against the EPA.
Well, and to see all of the clean coal burning plants in the state shut down, it would be a disaster.
It is a disaster. And the Dry Fork Station is a wonderful example, built with the latest and greatest technology. You couldn't build that plant today if you started, and that only opened up roughly 2 years ago. And what the EPA is trying to do on new source standards is they say, we want you to build it like this. But the standards they're using are not commercially viable. They have not been proven anywhere. They're using standards that have been, supplemented with great amount of federal funds, and they say, see, it works. That is not the way to go. So they're going after new coal-fired plants, and they're going after existing coal-fired plants. And we'll learn more about that in June this year, where they plan to go. But the point is, coal is good for the state, it's good for the country, it's good for jobs. It's good in every way that we can think of. We are doing our job to develop it and use it in a responsible fashion, to make it as clean as possible. And we're setting an example, and we want the federal government to pay attention to that.
Well, let's hope they see the light of day. I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for it, but
you may be blue.
You might be able to beat them in court, though.
Well, we've got to do that, and so I'm working the Attorney General's office very hard on these issues because, again, it's key for our citizens, but it's key for the country as well. It's a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we only have a few minutes left, but I kind of want to wrap up with a little bit more positive story. It's all that EPA stuff so negative. There is positive news. I mean, there are companies just wanting to come to Wyoming and do business, and Microsoft apparently likes what they've done so far. I mean, it really is another data center they want to expand. Wyoming seems to be just a great place for that kind of business.
Yeah, well, a couple things on that. One is, I asked the legislature for this unified network plan, which increases connectivity and speed across the state to where our goal is 100 gigabit. So that, Microsoft has definitely paid attention to that. But I also say, bringing it back to what Wyoming has. We have almost year in and year out the lowest electricity costs thanks to coal. We have year in and year out a stable economy, and we have some of the, this year recognizes the lowest taxes. They recognize that as well. Those are big deals. And so it allows me to go to a company like Microsoft and say, hey, here's what Wyoming's got. And as you know, they just moved in about a little over a year ago, and already they're doubling the size of their work in Wyoming to the tune of $500 million investment. That is great news for the entire state, and it is great news all the people who have worked, mineral industry, tourism, and ag, to create an economy that is stable and forward-looking that allows us to attract those types of businesses.
Well, and these high-tech jobs are also they're able to diversify the economy. So exactly. You're not here in Gillette and Campbell County. We're aware of this boom and bust cycle. It really is a great opportunity to do something that's stable and, like you said, forward-looking.
Yeah, you're spot on it. It helps diversify our economy, and it also, importantly and excitingly, it gives our young people who are thinking of where they can live in Wyoming or if they would have to move out of Wyoming, another opportunity, another industry to say, hey, that's something I'm interested in. I want to be in the tech sector. And I have pushed that tech sector, and I can tell you that we've made great progress. We've got a ways to go, but I want people to think about our big three: tourism, ag, and minerals, and I want to start have people talking about our tech sector as well.
Well, are there any other places that you're at liberty to maybe mention that you're able to maybe get to come to Wyoming? With some of those, I do a lot of recruiting to work with these companies, and just in the last year, because there were good gun laws in Wyoming, we've seen Magpul come in, Haze come in, gun companies, Ammo Can come in. So that's another thing, having the right rules, having the right laws, we attract those companies. And Magpul is a huge company that is moving out of Colorado because of their laws and moving to Wyoming because we respect the Second Amendment in Wyoming. Well, and I loved that story when I saw it. I will say,
very exciting.
I will say Colorado kind of made their own bed. Although I will say, I think the people of Colorado are starting to wake up on what happened there, and they're starting to turn things around.
I think it's this Magpul moving out, and they have marijuana moving in. It's not the right way for Wyoming.
Well, I will say I sometimes I watch the Denver stations when I'm getting ready to come to work, and all the commercials were for marijuana shops and no respectable businesses, we'll say. So I want to thank you again, Governor Mead, for coming in, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you again sometime soon. I guess I'll see you at the chamber luncheon. Are there any other parting thoughts you'd like to share?
Just great to be back in Gillette, and look forward to the chamber lunch. Always a wonderful occasion.
Okay, thank you, Governor Mead. And with that, we're out of time. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock sharp. Stay tuned for Rush.
You're listening to KIML Gillette.
Home Medical Resources. Medela breast pumps for sale or rent. Stop by at 901 West 2nd. 1 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 West 2nd.